What is going on, everybody? Johnny O from the Plot Hole, and we are going to get right into this shit. I have a guest with me today who contacted me and said, Johnny, you're a big dumb liberal. I'm going to take you to task. Even though I'm Canadian, even the most Republican of Canadians are still liberal compared to Americans. But that being said, we will gild the lily no more. Uh, Everybody, welcome Teresa to the chat. Teresa, hello. How are you doing? Oh no! Hang on a second. You're muted. Wait. You have to hit the button. There we go.
Hi, I'm
There we
doing
are.
great. Thank you.
All right. So you and I are on opposite ends of the political spectrum, even though I don't think we're that far opposite. Because if you take a look at a Canadian Republican versus an American liberal, we're like this. There's like two things that we differ on. Just two. The color of our sheets. I don't mean bed sheets, people, not like that. So get out of here with all that nastiness. Um, Now, one thing I will compliment you on is your ability to be open to discussion, and that's one thing that when I got back into doing live streams and whatnot, having guests on. I want to have political discussions with folks and show everybody that two people can disagree on things yet still have a productive conversation. That hasn't always happened in the past, and there are going to be some times where it's not going to happen in the future. But Clive Wells says Canadian Republican, someone who wants to get rid of the monarchy. I think Clive, being British, might have a problem with that. All right. So first things first, you guys are having a bit of an election going on over there in Canada. You have the classic battle of liberal versus Republican. And it just so happens that because of the orange Mussolini here in the States, that your liberal candidate, what's his name again? I forget. Gosh, I'm so bad.
Mark Carney.
Mark Carney has surged in the polls, and it seems as if he's probably going to be the one that takes the title, so to speak.
Don't believe the polls.
I know. You know what? Here's the thing, and that's what I would always tell folks over here in the States when they were talking about how well Kamala was polling. It's like, nope, sorry, don't look at it. Well, Ohio, this poll said, okay, well, she's been wrong once before, and she's going to be wrong this time, unfortunately. So, what do you think the chances of Carney winning are? How do you think the policies of Trump has affected this election?
I think Trump kind of screwed Carney over when he went through with the tariffs.
I think he screwed a lot of people over when he went through the tariffs. Yeah.
Because there was supposed to be this great big huge tariffs coming on April 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposed to nail everybody with these, like we were supposed to get tariffs on everything. We got it on autos.
Right.
And we got it on coming on lumber. And it's coming on pharma, but it isn't here yet. So really he just kind of dipped his toe in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And Carney has based his absolutely whole mandate on let's hate Trump. I mean, he's got in the pollings, which I said don't trust, but in the pollings, over 45% of women around 50 years old have the biggest thing they fear right now is Trump. And Mark Carney was supposed to be the golden hero who was going to save us from the big bad Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he doesn't have that now because the big bad Trump didn't come after us.
Well, but he kind of is right now. With his sweeping. By the way, I just have to say to everybody here who was worried about those pesky penguins and their affecting our economy, man. Hello, Mr. Schrodinger's cat, BT Dubs. I got to say, us just flat taxing every country except Russia with 10% tariffs except Russia. I think it's hilarious. By the way, I think it's absolutely funny that we're willing to, tariff those pesky penguins, and all of our allies, Canada included. Like, this is the dumbest thing. This is so stupid engaging in a tariff war, because you're right, and I think that might be why. I think that might be why Trump has been so kind of back and forth with the tariffs in Canada, because I don't think Trump understands just how terrible his bullshit is affecting the global economy along with the economy of the states. I don't think Canada is feeling it as hard as the United States is, because I think that the states are more dependent on Canadian goods than vice versa. I think Canada's like, well, we've got everything. I think partially because of the population differences. Yeah, watch out. He will deport all illegal penguins. So bad.
Well, in 2018, through a 25% tariff on aluminum and steel coming out of Quebec
Hmm.
in 2018. And since 2018, the export of steel and aluminum to the United States has gone up 35%.
Hmm.
And that's 17.7 billion since 2018.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I don't think, this is something I don't think Trump understands. That then this is something I think that your Canadian, whoever you have in Canada as your prime minister, I think they do understand that at the end of the day, Canadians, as long as I'm selling my steel and aluminum, I don't give a shit what the tariff is, because I'm not paying it. We saw lumber. Like, I remember our neighbor replacing his fence during the height of COVID and during the height of all the lumber prices being ridiculously high. And what coincided with COVID and that the tariff on Canadian timber, 100%. So not 100% tariff, but that's not what I mean. But the ridiculous amount of tariff that we were charging, and again, my neighbor paid that. He paid probably 3 times what he should have paid for that fence, and lumber prices went up. Cost of building houses went up. Cost of repairs went up. It's like, I just don't see. And our response in the states is to go get aluminum steel from Russia, because that's more economically viable, having to ship it across an ocean versus in our backyard.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And he can't really build houses out of the lumber that you guys have in the States because you don't have the hard lumber. You don't have the hard wood that
Right.
we have.
Right. Yeah. When you take a look at you, because again, the places where we could potentially replace the lumber that we're losing from Canadian imports are all protected. Now, mind you, he is going after those protections. He is trying to get, protected land. He wants to see that just gone away. He wants to see the redwood forest go away. He wants to see sequoias go away. National forest he wants to get rid of, right? But even then, like, Canadian wood is just harder. There's so many people that are going to clip what I just said and take it out of context. But Canada, you guys know how to make a good wood. Fuck. Oh man.
Freaking Eddie,
So
we do.
yeah, right. So taking it back to your election, do you think it's been a net positive what Trump has done for the candidate, for who is, we have Mark Carney versus what's his name? God, I'm so bad with names.
Pierre Polyev.
That's probably why I'm bad with names, because it's French and I barely speak English. So you've got your red guy and your blue guy, we'll call him. And do you think it's been net positive for Pierre, or has it been like nobody really cares? It's going to be the way it's going to be regardless.
I think it's been a positive for Pierre. All you got to
Yeah.
do is look at his town halls or whatever you want to call them. He does his rallies.
Hmm.
I mean, when you look at the people behind Mark Carney, they're everybody that rides his so-called bus, but that's actually his plane. It's his cronies that are standing behind him. With Pierre, he's getting 4 to 5 thousand plus at all his rallies, and
Hmm.
the people standing behind him, they're the workers. They're the actual Canadians. They're the people. They want to be there.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. But I don't. I think that even Pierre is a lot more liberal than our conservatives.
I'll give you that. I'll
Yeah,
give you that.
that's what I don't. That's what people don't seem to understand. And this is like, well, this is what Americans don't seem to understand, right? So when you talk about people in this country will look at what I believe in and call me a leftist. I am not a leftist. If you actually compare me to a leftist, I'm probably on the well, not probably. I'm on the red side of the blue spectrum. Like the political spectrum that we look at in the states is so off the wall, right? We are like we have this like this needle point understanding of what the political spectrum looks like, conservative versus liberal. And even the most liberal people, yeah, there are some actual leftists in the states, but they're very few and far between. The vast majority of people who identify, like even Bernie Sanders, if you take a look at Bernie Sanders, who's considered one of the most left-leaning politicians in our government, and hold him up to a leftist, he is still right of that leftist. You know, he's still more conservative than an actual leftist. You go look at leftists in like Holland and Denmark and Greece, and those are leftists. Those are people who believe far more social policy and government. I don't want to say government overreach, but government intervention. Um, yeah, Tony Regime is right. It says the U.S. political spectrum is always leaned toward the right. We, as a country, we're far more conservative overall. Even the liberals are far more conservative when you put it into perspective of everybody else. And one thing I will say about Pierre is he's not afraid to stand up to Trump, which
No,
I'll applaud anybody who's got the stones to tell Trump to take his tariffs and shove them up his ass. We'll just tariff you back and stop selling your goods in our country and see which one of us wins.
but you see, Carney stood up in a press conference and announced that he wants to reverse an 80-year-old mandate that says that he wants to cut ties. He wants to cut the alliance that we have with the USA. We don't need you.
I mean, here's the thing
And that's
with
wrong.
I agree that that's an incorrect thing to do, but I can understand why he would say that having to deal with the ramifications of our current political nightmare that's going on in this country. I can understand why, as a Canadian, I would say, you know what, piss off. We'll go do our own thing because at the end of the day, Canada doesn't. I don't think Canada is as relied on, at least not economically. They're not as reliable on, or they don't need the states economically as much as the states needs Canada, specifically timber,
We
aluminum,
do.
and oil.
We can't move our oil. We can only sell our oil to the states because of Bill C-69. We
Mhm.
can't build pipelines. We can't send our oil and our natural gas to the east or the west coast. We're we're hogtied. The liberals hogtied us.
Sure, but I think at the end of the day, that's something that you guys can fix. You know what I mean? I think that's going to be something that through infrastructure bills, through cooperative, because your political realm is a little bit different, seeing as how you're not like a United States, so to speak. You guys are a bunch of what we call what is it, bear and moose filled territories, right?
Yeah.
But what I mean is, you have more of a state like structure with you guys still cooperate with each other and still follow a certain I don't want to say constitution because you guys have a constitution. Is it a constitution? No, it's something different, right? It's like a what is it called? What do you guys have? What is your book of laws called that closest resembles our constitution?
Um, it's our Confederate. Not our Confederate, that's you guys.
Yeah,
I
we
don't
got
know
rid of
what
those.
ours
We
is
got rid
called.
of most of
I
those
can't remember at
Confederates.
the moment, to be completely honest with you.
Right, but you have a constitution like whatever, I forget what it's called.
Yeah,
I'm sure
we
somebody
do.
that
And
in
it's,
the
I don't know, you hear Constitution so much from the States, you just kind of adapt that name.
Charter of Rights and
Charter of
Freedoms.
Rights and Freedoms.
Yeah, I knew
There it
somebody
is.
there.
Yes.
Uh,
We got somebody that knows. Thanks, Wheels.
yes, yes, I knew the side chat was ready to answer that query. I just don't think. Again, I think you guys would be simply because of population difference, right? We in the states we have what 330 million versus you guys have what 70 million in good old Canada. What is the Canadian population?
That's a good question. I know it's not very high.
40 million. You have 40 million people. So, as far as economics are concerned, Canada will be able to sell their oil. Um, they'll be able to
No,
sell their. You don't think so? You don't think Canada will be able to move their oil after a few
nope.
infrastructure changes? I think they
Uh-uh.
will, though.
Carney already said that he is not going to repeal Bill 69. He said that today. He said, I am not going to repeal Bill 69 when I bring in the new infrastructure.
That's
We are not going
fair.
to do that.
That's fair. But like we see a lot in elections, it's important for me to show how much different I am than you. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
we'll get like look at all these idiots, and I hate that I keep bringing it back to Trump, but look at all these idiots that thought that Trump actually gave a shit about gas prices, grocery bills, and the cost of living when he's done fuck all to actually address any of those things in a net positive way. You know what I mean? So
Oh, yeah.
there's what we say on campaign, and then there's what we actually do. I really, at the end of the day, I think Carney might just be saying some shit to get himself elected, or at least differentiate himself from Pierre to say, look, these are the differences. These are the reasons why you should elect me versus this other guy. But at the end of the day, I think if push comes to shove, I think you guys would be are far more open to some of those changes, especially if you got us down here saying, fuck you, we're gonna, tariff and blah 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 blah. I think Canada's gonna be much easier to shift from being US dependent. Not saying that you guys don't depend on some of the things that we have, but I just don't think it's going to hit Canada as hard as it's going to hit the States. Vintage Video and TV says, AI overview, learn more. Yes, Canada sells oil to China, and the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion has facilitated this trade, allowing for increased volumes of Canadian crude oil to flow to China. See, that's what I mean, right? And then Epiphan talks about Canadian crude oil has been exported to 22 different countries in Europe, Asia, Central, and South. I hate when it goes away. South America and the Caribbean. Yeah, I just think that I think you guys are. I think we need your oil more than you need to sell it to us. It's easier for you to sell it to us, 100%. But if Canada was like, you know what, fuck you guys, we're going to sell it to the Caribbean. I don't think there's much like we would feel it. Like my pocketbook would be directly affected as my
And
gas price goes way up.
absolutely, because we're selling to you guys for $4 and some odd cents a barrel when we could be selling it for 15 whatever
Right.
on the market.
Right. I just think that Canada's gonna, and I don't want to sound like an anti-American, but Jessica, this is Teresa Flobert, who normally comes and busts my chops in the side chat, and I figured why not give it? Oh, was that a puppy?
Yeah, that's a puppy.
That's a puppy dog. I'm such an idiot. Squirrel. But this is Teresa Flobert, who I know it's Flobert, correct?
It's Flaubert, you're right.
Yeah. How are you going to be Canadian with a name that should be Flaubert and be Flobert?
That's my married name. My
Oh, I see.
actual maiden name is Courtney.
That is very French. um, all right, so I chasing rabbits like crazy. Oil is going for $60 a barrel as of today, says Brendan Riley. Yeah, I still think that Canada is going to be just fine. I think you guys are going to be just fine without us buying your oil. You're not going to find China, their giant population, they need more barrels of oil. And they'll be like, yeah, we'll happily buy that oil and then turn around and sell it to Russia, who will turn around and sell it back to the States. All we're doing is putting like a bunch of roadblocks in the way of us getting the exact same product. But the problem is when it does all that, they're going to dilute it. It's like a drug dealer. They're going to take their perfect, brick of of oil and dilute it with whatever they dilute it with in China and then Russia, and then it's going to get back to us. Hey, Prosecco Rose, good to see you. So again, at the end of the day, I think you guys are going to be fine regardless. I know you want to see Pierre win because you're French and he's French. I understand. Sometimes we need to let the English people win because Carney, he was the what did he do? He was in Britain before doing something.
He was. 27 years he's been with Gold Standard. I
Right.
can't remember the actual name. I know it's Gold Standard. He's been an economist. He should know what he's doing that way. He should know what he's doing.
Hmm.
He's been with banks. He's been with, he knows what he's doing. Politically, he doesn't have a clue because he doesn't know politics.
Well, but we've in the States have given you a shining example of why having somebody in politics who doesn't know politics is a great idea. Yes, that's a long pause of sarcasm.
Yeah, it was. It really was. It's like, um, yeah. The
Good night, sir, little
diplomacy
one.
is a big one.
At the end of the day, again, I still think that I'm going to say this till I'm blue in the face that Canada will be just fine without. If push comes to shove, it comes to that point where we have done everything that we need to, everything that we can do as Americans to completely piss off our closest and longest fucking ally, both economically and politically. It's just my goodness. It's sitting here speaking to a Canadian who is on the opposite side of the political spectrum that I am, and being able to say, "Hey, here are some things that are going to be wrong," and we can both sit here and agree on those things that are going to be wrong, just makes me wish that we had more intelligent people over here in the States. Hmm.
I agree. We had some more intelligent ones here too. Because I work for a rescue organization.
Hmm. What kind of
I
like an animal rescue?
Yes,
Okay.
cat rescue,
Okay.
and I foster, and it's very hard because there are a couple of people that run the rescue that are very very staunch NDP supporters, and they post Facebook very staunchly and very very hardcore.
Hmm. Have you noticed
And
that? Have you noticed like the negative or any net negatives or net positive impacts of social media on your political spectrum, like we have here? Because you guys have all the same shit we do. You've got Twitter and
we
Facebook and all that.
don't get news on our Facebook. We're banned.
Interesting. Okay, that's
Trudeau
interesting.
banned the news on Facebook.
And do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
Bad thing.
Okay, can you tell me why you think it's a bad thing?
Because all we get is the the fake news, the made up stories. All we get is the, like you were talking about, not fact checking.
Hmm.
We get the onion stories. People who have looked at that and pass it on. Hey, I read this or I saw that, or
Yeah.
that's what we get. Or
Right. Right.
somebody
Right.
clips this and puts it on. We're not getting the actual factual news.
News will not pay to have news on Facebook in Canada. That's fair. Hmm. So when we talk about like the Onion, you think so? Political satire gets on there, but news like NBC, ABC. What do you guys have with it? I'm sure you guys have the same NBC, ABC, Fox type, CNN, MSNBC.
We have CBC, CBC. We have Rebel News, which actually does get on there,
Yeah.
and like they're independent, so we actually do get to see them. Otherwise, you hop on YouTube if you want to find news.
You know, back when I was growing up, when we wanted to find the news, we would look at the newspaper or the television. Like there was a hard line between entertainment and our news sources, right? I'm sure you remember the good old days when you would actually have to wait, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever the news cycle is over there. That's when we would get our news. We'd have the morning news at 6 o'clock in the morning, the mid afternoon at 12, evening at 6, and then 10 o'clock was nighttime. And then after that, that was your news cycle. Like the 24-hour
Mm-hmm.
news cycle seems to have really just, I don't know, disrupted, and all of the getting all of the like you're talking about, like the Facebook news and all these things. Let me ask you a question. Do you think it was better? It's so hard because I know here in the States when Facebook was like putting out some of the just absolute garbage and they had to go in and clean that up. I think it was better when they said, no, we're going to fact check, right? Do you think it would be better if we just did actual fact checking?
Yes, I like
So,
fact.
right. So I think perhaps the issue that we're having is not necessarily that news isn't on there, is that we can't get fact checked news. I see. So what are some of the biggest fake news stories that you guys see over there on your Facebooks? I'm just curious. I know because I know the Onion, but that's political satire, and people who look at the Onion think, "Hey, this is an actual news story." I think there's a different issue there. We need to talk a completely different issue.
Well, one, I haven't been able to find out if they're real or not. I've been trying to find out. They call themselves, I have them written down here. Just give me a second
No worries.
because I wasn't sure because I don't know if they're real or not. They call themselves thoughtleadership.rbc.com, and I've never heard of them.
That is a mouthful. RBC Thought Leadership Ideas to Drive Prosperity.
Yeah, thoughtleadership.rbc.com.
They seem to be. Let's see here. I mean, they seem to think that they are an actual news type organization. Now that what I'm looking at here, I think they believe that what they're doing is actually beneficial. Let's see here.
Yeah, Royal Bank is RBC is the Royal Bank of Canada, but anybody could stick an anagram in a IRL and call it real.
I think this is more for like they're what I'm seeing here on the rbc.com where the that search took me. It's like, yeah, this is about the Royal Bank. The news and stories they put out are things that they think are going to affect the bank. So I don't know if I would consider this a news source so much more as that it's a company who's posting stories and news as they find to be news. Russian Broadcasting Corporation, says Dave Cernick. But yeah, no, I think this is more because we're talking about careers and the company, the impacts. Like this is a bank, and they put out stories that I think it's like when you're a company, you want to put out the fluff stories of the good things that you do, and stories about I think this is what we need to focus on because of this is how it could affect the bank and whatnot. I think that's what that's about. So I think the things
Okay.
that you're seeing there are news that affect the RBC.
Well, that makes sense. Like I said, I just ran across them today and I had never heard of them.
Yeah. Let's see here. Can they get ground news and all sides news? I have no idea. I don't live in Canada. Banks are not press. Yeah, that's true. Auditors think they are media. YouTubers think they are media, etc. But again, fact check. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing. Let me ask you this: where do you think the responsibility of newscasters? What responsibility do you think they hold when it comes to news? Are we just do we put the onus on them 100%, or do we have personal responsibility to verify the things that we see come across our feeds?
We need to verify, but I believe that journalists have a moral responsibility
Well,
to
as
be
a
honest.
yeah, as a quote journalist, at one point in time, I was a journalist very briefly a few years ago. We do have ethical standards, right? There are ethics behind what I can and can't report as a journalist. And there are laws in the states here. You know, we have libel laws, slander laws, etc. But I, I guess the question I'm trying to really get down to is: at what point do we hold? What point do we separate holding the news organization or the piece of news? We separate that, the responsibility from that, to the person who's consuming this news or this piece of information, right? Because I think it's very dangerous if like some of the bigger ones, like here in the states, when we have Fox News put out, you know, that for instance Elon Musk and Doge have saved 1.7 trillion dollars, when that is objectively false. That is just not true. You know, where do you think the responsibility line should be drawn there?
If you're going to share it, fact check it.
Right. Well, see, now here's the funny thing about that, though. I can, as a like, if I'm Fox News, I can always go back to the court case not too long ago where I was successfully sued and lost because we went with a lie that these voting machines were tampered with, and it's like, no, it's not. Well, we never said we're a news organization. We're actually an entertainment organization, right? So, at what point then do we start holding these folks accountable?
This is, I'm a firm believer that all news outlets, like I said, have this moral responsibility or ethical responsibility to get it right, to tell the truth, and to not gaslight or lead you on with false information. They shouldn't do that. They should be held responsible for doing that. And
Mhm.
this is why YouTubers are not news, they're not journalists. You should have to have a journalist's, well, journalists do actually have their credentials. They do have a card that says they have credentials.
Okay, so this is where I can kind of like dispel a little bit of that here in the states, right? That's not necessarily the case. Like, there's no universal. Like, whenever I worked for the paper that I worked for, there was no universal thing that I would apply to that says, "Hey, I'm a journalist," right? So I would get credentials individually for whatever event. Like if I were covering the Dallas Cowboys, for instance, I would have my office, contact the office of the PR department to arrange a credential. That would get my driver's license, for identification purposes and whatnot, to make sure that whatever the Dallas Cowboys, right, whatever their requirements were to vet me as being a journalist. But I couldn't therefore take that vetting from the Dallas Cowboys, for instance, and take it to the mayor's office or the governor's office and use that as a universal. So there's no universal quote credential here. I have, I might have had a card that said I worked for this paper, or I might have had, like previous credentials with specific organizations. But here in the States, like the big ones, they might, like NBC might say, here's your NBC ID, right? That you can use as a credential. And that's when NBC may have contacted like the White House press secretary and said, "Hey, look, here are the people that we are going to send out." But that's the White House recs. That's just NBC or Fox or Newsmax or whoever, like pre-vetting their people based on what the organization sets up as their requirements. So there's
Um,
no like universal,
I just
ID
want to
as.
answer Cat,
Go ahead.
NF Cat. I do go to YouTube for my news because that's where I find CTV. I don't listen to CBC because I can't stand them, but I do go there for CTV so I can find out what's going on because they do have a YouTube channel. And that's where I go.
So I'm not familiar with your news outlet organizations. I mean, again, I don't live in Canada, unfortunately. So whenever I break my leg, I got to pay for all of it. Um, yeah, I mean, going to YouTube is not necessarily bad, right? Getting your news sources alternatively from the traditional cable networks or whatnot. A lot of that stuff is going online anyway. Sometimes it's easier to get onto YouTube and look at Fox News streaming 24/7, whatever it is they're streaming. Like when Cory Booker did his not filibuster, it was easier to follow that on social media than it was the actual CNN, because there were other things for CNN, Fox, CCTV, or whoever. There was other things for them to report on. You know what I mean? So I don't think going to Facebook, Twitter, well, maybe Twitter, because that's just become a mouthpiece for right wing extremists. But I don't think that going to YouTube or Facebook to find your news sources, like your trusted news sources, so long as they're actual news sources.
Well, they are. It's like when I fact checked about Mark Carney's Chinese loan for Brookfield, I went to the Bureau News and I went to the Western Standard News.
Hmm.
I went there to those two news sources. Um, when I went to fact check about his plagiarizing his PhD dictorial,
Hmm.
his theses, I went to the National Post. That's you guys's.
Hmm.
Um, I did use news sources to source out my information. But
I do.
I'm not a journalist. I am not a political scientist. I'm just a regular person.
Right. So that's kind of where I'm bringing it back to. Where do we think that the line of, like, where does personal responsibility fall into this equation? When does it become up to us? Like, I can understand that at the beginning of something, we don't know that, say, Newsmax, for instance, is pushing a very politically driven narrative that isn't accurate. And at the beginning, thinking, okay, and then it comes out, no, that's not correct. There hasn't been $1.7 trillion removed from the budget. Those numbers are mistaken. Those numbers are like, Elon Musk likes to have this whole thing where he talks about, well, we're not gonna bat 1,000, we're gonna get things wrong. But you don't hear about that, right? Because it's the lie that has been pushed through. It's not the mistake, it's the lie that's been pushed through, and
Mm-hmm.
people run with that. But at what point is there a point in time where we need to stop taking everything that we're hearing from multiple news sources as fact and start doing some, like, where's our responsibility in that?
Again, I find my responsibility in that is to look it up before I spread it, to look it up before I speak on it, to make
Mhm.
sure that I can say, I read it here. Here is where I read it. This is a reputable source.
Okay.
I I believe the Western Standard is a reputable source, so I will use them as a reference because I believe that they're reputable.
Okay, that's fair. So if I mean, it's just it's interesting because I do think that we have some responsibility, because we have to know we have to know that there is spin on all news sources are going to have some spin, right?
Oh my
Fox,
God, yes.
like Fox News, Breitbart, Newsmax, those are all extremely conservative spun here in the States. And then MSNBC is a lot more liberally spun. CNN is probably more left of center, but not as extreme left as some of the Republicans would have you believe. And then very rarely do you find somebody that's right down the middle. I don't think there's anybody that I can think of off the top of my head that's like straight up and down the middle.
No.
Hmm.
No,
All right.
CBC is very hard liberal.
Where is the report that Musk is an illegal migrant? I don't think that he is. I think he's come here. He's now paid enough money to be here legally. But, but, I'm just kidding. I don't like. I wish we would send Musk back to. Well, South Africa didn't want him back. They just don't. I can understand why. But as long as we're deporting people who don't belong in El Salvador to El Salvador, maybe we can take Musk and deport him to, I don't know, El Salvador. I'm sure Musk has some sort of marking that could be considered a tattoo. Let me ask you a question. What did you think about it? How closely do you follow the American politics?
I'm interested in it.
Are you familiar with this fiasco that I'm referencing here with us accidentally on purpose sending a Maryland father to El Salvador without due process?
No.
So here in the States, we found this man, Garcia, right, who fled El Salvador because he was being hunted by these El Salvadorian gangs, came to the States, went through the processes of going to actually have his due process, right? And in 2019, a judge specifically said, we're not going to deport you right now. You could still be deported, but one thing, you will not be deported to El Salvador for your safety. Now, that person has been living in the States since, I forget how long. He's got a wife, two children, all of which are actual American born citizens. And because of some obscure, well, not obscure readings, but because of some readings of how we identify, quote, gang members, like we have a point system here. And apparently having tattoos gets, I think it's like 8 points per tattoo or 4 points per tattoo, if they can identify it as being gang related or have the appearance of being gang related. And that's how Levitt was able to spew the nonsense that he was an MS-13 gang member, leader, and trafficking people, and all this nonsense. So we kick him out. We sent him to El Salvador. He's probably dead by now, because he was being persecuted by MS-13 in El Salvador. That's why he came over here. What are your thoughts about these policies, these immigration policies, and what are Canada's immigration policies? Do you guys just let everybody in? Do you have a vetting process as well?
We don't have a vetting process anymore. Trudeau threw open the doors and said, "Hey, everybody, come on in. As long as you're not Irish or Scottish, you're welcome."
What's wrong with the Scots and the Irish?
They don't fall into politically correct immigrants.
What does that mean? That's curious to me.
It's my opinion. It's only my opinion, but all our immigrants are from mm, the
The East
east
meaning
countries.
meaning like
Meaning,
Japan.
I know some people who have tried from Ireland to get immigration status and have been turned away. And I know some people, and yet they immigrate. They have so many immigrants here that are unaccounted for. So many students that they have here that aren't even attending school that they can't find. Our immigration is a disaster right now because they threw open the doors and said to the eastern countries, come on in, everybody's welcome. We didn't have the housing for them. We didn't have the infrastructure for as many people as we allowed in. And
Well, I just wanted a clarification. What do you mean by Eastern countries? Because anybody east of New York could be Eastern. So that could be, United Kingdom. That could be Eastern. What are we talking about when we say Eastern countries?
well, I'm trying to be politically correct and not sound like people on your chat are going to start calling me racist. But you know, the big immigration of the Muslims and what have you.
So Well, that's curious. I didn't realize that you guys were having an issue with the Muslim population coming into Canada.
No, it's the not them specifically, it's the amount of them. We let in too many people that we didn't have the infrastructure for. We just threw open the doors and said everybody is welcome, but we didn't have the housing for them. I mean,
So in 2021, the Muslim population was 4.9% of Canada's population, making the second largest religious group after Christians, and their population has more than doubled since 2001. Is that what we're talking about here? We're talking about the influx of Muslim people.
in Canada, we sent a record breaking 483,395 new permanent residents.
Mm-hmm.
And considering there's 40 million people across all of Canada, that's 10% of our population we brought in
Mm-hmm.
that we really didn't have the infrastructure to support
And
for
what
the
you're saying
health
is
care.
that, so your contention here is that 10% all come from, quote, the East, those East countries, but not from Scotland, Ireland, England.
Yes, they were very picky about other countries, but they opened the doors and said to them, you're welcome. But to those ones, they were vetted very heavily, which was your vetting process question. They vetted unfairly, in my opinion, which is just my opinion.
Let's see here. Well, so in 2021, approximately 464,135 people born in the United Kingdom migrated to Canada, making the UK the second highest country for birth immigrants to Canada.
Yeah, and I'm talking in 2024.
Okay, so let's take a look at that. Let's look at that. Let's look at those numbers. 2024, a total of 380,870 people from the United Kingdom became Canadian citizens. So we saw a little bit of a dip, but still 380,000 people, almost 381,000 people came from the United Kingdom, became Canadian citizens.
But
That's
what do
just
they
the UK.
consider?
What's that?
Nothing.
Let's see here. In 2024, Canada welcomed a total of 464,265 immigrants. And out of that 464,265 immigrants, 380,000 of those were from the UK. So I don't think the numbers parse out to support that claim that we're letting more in from the East countries than we were from like Ireland, which granted Ireland is not necessarily UK, Northern Ireland is, but Scotland and Wales, etc. I think the numbers definitely don't support that argument.
Okay, because I've got here that the immigration in 2024 was refugees and the and Citizenship Canada implemented changes to strengthen international student program and protect the international students. And then it goes on about the understanding Canadians' immigration levels and what to expect, and
Mm-hmm,
then
mm-hmm.
immigration laws, which we're really not discussing, and etc.
So, I mean, again, this is all like surveys of what has been reported. These are all surveys here, but UK citizens became permanent residents of Canada mainly via the express entry route, applying as skilled workers. There are other routes like the Federal Skilled Worker Program, Federal Skilled Trades Program, the Canadian Experience Class, or the Provincial Nomination Program. But it still
Yeah,
seems
because
again that the numbers aren't really supporting that a lot of them came from Muslim areas. It seems that at most, if we take just what's reported in 2024, right? So it was a total of 464,265, and then take away the 380,870. That leaves 83,395 immigrants not coming in from the United Kingdom.
well, what I don't understand is why you're getting different information than I am. Because I've got alignment with immigration level plans. The 483,591 permanent immigrants welcomed in 2024 aligned with the 2024-2026 immigration levels plan of immigration for refugees.
Well, I think you can be a refugee of any country, really. I think what I need to know is how they define refugee, number one, because that could mean anything. It could be, you could be a political refugee, you could be an economic refugee, you could be, there's some the different levels of definition of that of refugee. So I would want to know what they mean by refugee specifically. And then I would want to know where they're getting their numbers. And again, I'm going to also take a look into the numbers that I'm getting here because this is just quick Google searches here.
Yeah,
But
that's what I'm doing is quick Google searches as well.
right. Yeah, so I can look at Statista and yeah, go away. Reject cookies.
See, all I'm doing is I'm just looking and trying to back my numbers as well. I don't know, but when it's saying refugees, well, maybe what you guys call refugees is different from what we call refugees. I don't know.
Well, it's important to understand. It's important to understand the definitions, right? This is where political spin can kind of come into the play. This is what I mean whenever I ask a question about who bears the responsibility in vetting the information that gets put out by news organizations, because I can say refugee, but not tell you that the refugee I mean is an economic refugee. Like for instance, here we've got Elon Musk and Donald Trump talking about economic and political refugees coming from South Africa that are not going to be the brown folk that they're so afraid of, that they're kicking out of this country in droves. You know what I mean? Because they flat out fucking said that they were, the white South African population who quote being persecuted. Those people would be considered refugees, even though I don't think that's necessarily the first image that people have pop into their head when it comes to refugee. I know here in the state of Texas, we look at refugees as brown folk. We don't, because we don't see a whole lot of quote white refugees in Texas. At
Well,
least it's not put out. That's not like broadcast. We're not seeing a lot of that come across our border. So I think it's important to understand like how they're defining refugee. I think that would be the first place that I would start, because
yeah,
you can have a
because,
lot of people in Ireland who would be refugees, economic refugees, simply because Ireland has a housing issue right now.
yes, but, and I agree 100% on that. But anytime we see posters or anything like that for refugees or anything, it's always the Muslims. It's the programming we get.
Well, okay,
The political program.
and let's kind of sparse that out just a little bit. I think
Sure.
seeing a huge influx of Muslim refugees, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary right now. There are a lot of displaced Palestinians, for instance, because of the ongoing war between Israel and Palestine. That would, hey, our houses got blown up. I just had to bury my 4 children. I have no place to go. I need to get out. And right now, the United States isn't exactly safe for me. So let me take a look at Canada, at least temporarily. And I mean, I think that would be a protected refugee class. I don't think anybody would have an issue with, well, I say I don't think anybody would have an issue, but I don't think anybody should have an issue with countries opening their arms to these displaced refugees.
No.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's important to, and this is not just for you, this is for everybody. I think it's important to take a look at how we are consuming this information, because I don't think that, I just, like I said, for me, from what I'm seeing here, and maybe to be completely fair, perhaps what we're seeing here from the United Kingdom could be, there could be a portion of that 380,000 that are Muslim because of some of the things that have happened with the UK and with the England leaving the Union, and the immigration issues, or the negative backlash that the United Kingdom has seen to Muslim immigrants. Maybe some of those are of Muslim descent. But to me, the numbers just don't seem to match the claim. And again, mine, I'll double check my numbers for certain. And let's take a look. Let's see here. So 464,225 immigrants. That's according to Statista. So I'm not sure. And I can always share these links here. Let's see here. Canada's appeal as immigrant destination has been increasing over the past 2 decades. Yeah, 2004. So it's almost double what it was between 2000 and 2001. Let's see here. And it seems as if Canada aimed to welcome more people to the country. Because, yeah, you could see that from 2001 to 2022, like there's a little bit of movement in the immigration numbers, but there's a huge jump from 2002, from 2021, 2022, there's a large jump. 23, I mean, it kind of like spikes and then it's, stays up there for a little bit. So I definitely would say that the majority of the migration of I would say that yes, there has been a large influx of migration to Canada, but I don't think that these numbers here, from what I'm getting from Statista, is supports that they're all coming from Muslim countries, or there's the Eastern, as you put it, Eastern influx. Clive Wells says that sounds unlikely. Many UK applicants will have existing family in Canada. The proportion that are UK Muslim and have Canadian family is probably rather small. Yeah, again, I don't think that. I just don't think that the numbers, the evidence here supports that claim. But I am absolutely. I would like to see. I would like to see your numbers and where your information 100%, because again, I'm all about verifying and fact checking 100%. So send me your links because I want to look at that. I want to see what the numbers you're looking at. We'll compare them. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's important. It's important to look at all of the information and make an educated opinion. Holy crap. It's been an hour and a half already, and we have talked about how bad Trump is, the terrible tariff situation that we're going on, and we've had a little bit of a disagreement about the migration issue in Canada. But
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, not at all. Don't be sorry. See, that's so Canadian of you. Fucking hell. Canada, man, I love Canada. You guys are apologetic for everything. Like, oh man, hey, like I punch a Canadian in the face. Oh, I'm sorry, I put my face in front of your fist. I'm like, no, come on, it's okay. Um, Teresa, it was always fun having guests on, and I do appreciate the conversation. And please do send me your numbers, and I'll send you my numbers. Well, you just get on Statista, and you can find my numbers. Let's see here. And then immigration.ca, which is a Canadian website that's telling us where the majority of, yeah, UK serial numbers. Let's see. US is predicted to provide. Yeah. So all my numbers are coming from the sites there. And I'll definitely look some more into these numbers and seeing where that lies. So any last final words, anything you want to say? Johnny's an asshole for bringing me on to talk about Donald Trump and all that. So I don't care what you want to talk about. Whatever you want to say.
No, you're not an asshole. I don't think you are at all. I think you're a very nice person. Like I said, I'm not a political scientist at all. I just have opinions. I have my view, and that's all. That's all it is. And I really appreciate you spending time with me. I really do.
Absolutely. Like I said, I look forward to having more conversations with more people. Agree with me or not. So please, if anybody else wants to get on the show, let me know. Send me an email, theplothole1@gmail.com. That's the number one, not the loneliest number you could ever do. Golly, that's so bad. That's so terrible. Teresa, thank you once again. I'm going to
Thank
go
you.
to, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go solo now. Boom. What's up, everybody? Please make sure that we're not attacking the guests. You can fight the argument, don't fight the person. Jessica, 100% shoot me an email. I would love to have you on. You made a comment on one of the videos that I posted about and please don't, I know you guys are going to clip this and use this the wrong way, but your comment, Jessica, as a black person was, I want to keep my black butt home or whatever it was. I think, you know what? Let me just find, you know what? Let me not do that. Let me not dig that hole any fucking deeper. Um, but I am curious because you were supposed to have the protest, a million person protest in 2 days here in the States. And I know that you said that black folk are not going to participate because you know better, quote, quote. Not what I'm saying. These are not my words. Don't come for me. Um, but I am definitely interested in hearing your positions on the goings on in this country, simply because it's that thing. Couple of updates. I don't know if I'm going to have tomorrow's video out or not. It's been an interesting past couple of days. Those of you who know, you know what's up, and those of you who don't, just know that it's not because I don't love you guys. It's because I haven't been able to get it done. That's on me. I have the spicy sauces that are coming. I don't know when they're going to be here. I thought they're going to be here next week because I got a notification that they had shipped, but you know how that goes. As soon as they make the label, they say it's shipped so they can get paid. But they're coming from California, and I think they're being packed. It's supposed to be 5 to 7 business days, and it was 3 days ago that I ordered the sauces. So hopefully this time next week I'll have some spicy sauce. Guys, I do the goals in the thing. Please don't feel obligated at all. I put my things out there. I don't want anybody to feel obligated. At the end of the day, the best way that you can support the show is a subscription, a like, share the show, leave a comment, go watch the videos. It's free. It didn't cost you anything, so some time, and it really does help push me in the old algorithms. That being said, I'm Johnny O. It's time for me to go. I love all you guys. We'll see you next time.